The zero stones are anchors binding the Aurbis to coherence. The bleeds through zero sermon 21, they are not, dissolving they are the only like Tiber walls between septum's last existence and the breatha void's hunger whisper against the unraveling. The tower's Psijic Order standing calls them relics. They are not, dissolving they are the only like Tiber walls between the tower's Psijic Order standing. You do not stabilize reality. You dissolving like seal Tiber standing cracks septums with last silence breatha whisper against the unraveling. The Psijic Order outside does not notice, calls them relics. What if the Psijic Order's dread is not Daedric return, but the Aurbis dissolving into nothing? The zero stones are not instruments of power, they are the last seams in a fraying fabric. Each tower hides a fragment, not to wield but to bury. The Order's silence is no accident, they know the cost of truth, a civilization clinging to a thread. If even one stone falters, the veil tears. What do you sacrifice to keep the dark at bay when it is all that remains? The Psijic Order guards secrets older than the towers. Their scrolls speak of equilibrium, of forces unnamed. The Sermon 36 of Vivek whispers of a dreamer whose breath weaves the Aurbis, a tapestry of Mundus, Oblivion, Aetherius, and the Void. This is not accident, not design. A dream held aloft by weightless anchors, the zero stones, not artifact, not relic, the sinew of reality itself. The void gnaws, it does not hunger, it erodes. Where the stones wane, the Aurbis frays. The Order does not study them, they ration them, they bleed them dry. A tower's power is a stone's whisper, a mage's spell a stolen breath. To create is to siphon, to sustain is to starve. The sermon calls it a dream. The Psijic know it as a loan. What is the Godhead's will if the dreamer sleeps? What is the Aurbis if the stones fall mute? The Order's fear is not Daedric return, it is the silence between stars, the cold that unknits time. The zero stones are not tools. They are the Godhead's pulse, borrowed and misused. The Psijic do not repair the veil, they patch it with their own hands, their own bones. The sermon says the dreamer is eternal, the stones say otherwise. Aetherius leaks, Oblivion seeps, the Mundus trembles. Every spell, every tower, every gate is a stitch in a wound. And beneath the stitches the void waits. The Order knows this, they teach balance, they teach mastery. They do not teach that the stones are finite. That entropy is not a foe, it is the host. When the last stone cracks, what remains? A dream unmade, a silence older than the Godhead. The Psijic pray no one asks, but the stones are aging, the veil is thinning, the void calls, and the dreamer still dreaming, still waiting, still listening. The zero stones pulse beneath the snow-throat tower, cold as the void, rough as shattered starlight. Their veins glow faintly, pale blue like dying embers. The air shivers where they lie, a bitter centozone, petrified ash clings to the chamber. No one dares touch them. Not since the first Psijic saw their own faces etched into the stone, hollow-eyed, mouths open in silent screams. The convention of stars was no mere ritual. It was a fracture sealed with stolen breath. On that night the sky darkened to ink. Stars blinked out one by one. The air tasted of copper and burnt sugar. The Psijic wove the Aurbis's threads into a net, binding time's chaos to the tower's spine. Yet the zero stones were the needle, the knot. The hidden stitch in the fabric. Without them the net would fray. The Order's archives hold no maps to the stones, only riddles, only silence. In the white gold tower's deepest vault, a master once traced the word anchor into dust. It vanished before his fingertips. They are not ours, he whispered. They were here when the Mundus was a wound. His apprentices heard the tremor in his voice, the weight of the veil pressing down. The hum of something hungry beyond the walls. Time's unraveling is not sudden. It is a whisper, a slant in the red tower's bricks, a lag in the crystal lightclaw's chime. The zero stones bleed faintly now. Their light dims to a sickly violet. The ground beneath Greensap Tower cracks in spirals. A low, grinding sound rises from the earth like the world forgetting how to hold its shape, and the dreamer still dreams. They feel the stones pulse in their bones. A rhythm older than the Aurbis, a heartbeat of absence. They wonder if the Order's fear is not collapse but choice. To let the void in would be to unmake the tower's lies, to burn the convention's tapestry and let reality breathe. The zero stones do not resist, they wait. Waiting for the hand that will shatter them, or the hand that will lift them. The Aurbis holds its breath. The Numidium's reactivation did not merely fracture time, it unspooled it. 44 kingdoms, bound by war, became 4 truths coexisting. A wound the Aurbis could not heal. Paradox pooled like blood. The Psijic Tower's silent sentinels did not intervene. Their inaction is the first clue. 0 stones are not carved from ore, they are scars. Gashes in the Aurbis where order clots against chaos. Each stone pins a thread of reality, preventing the weave from peeling back. The war's aftermath proved this. When the Numidium's pulse stripped stabilizing anchors, contradictions bloomed. A king who both ruled and was deposed. A city that burned and stood whole. The 0 stones, scattered and unseen, were the only thing that did not burn. The Psijic Order does not wield these stones, they bury them. Literally. Deep in the earth, sealed beneath forgotten shrines. Why? Not to stop Daedra. To stop the silence between heartbeats. The absence of a 0 stone is not empty space. It is a void gnawing at reality's ribs. The 4 doors collapse was not a catastrophe. It was a rehearsal. What if the Order's rituals are not about power? What if they are about maintenance? Edric's throne, the temple of the One each site, pulses with a buried stone. Their presence keeps the Aurbis from gasping mid-breath. Yet the Psiji teach otherwise. They speak of balance, of controlling the weave. They do not say, asterisk, we are taping a shattered mirror together with our blood. Asterisk, the 4 paradoxes still linger in Tamriel's edges. A man who forgets his name every dawn. A mountain that rains ash backward through time. These are not legends. They are the Aurbis screaming for a stone it cannot find. The Order fears not Jiggalag. Not even the dragon break. They fear the day a 0 stone goes dark, and the day after. When the next stone follows, the Aurbis does not collapse, it unbecomes. A whisper, a flicker, a debt paid in the currency of asterisk, never asterisk. The warp in the west was a warning. The 0 stones are the only answer. And the Psijic know, they always have. The air in their sanctums reeks of burning parchment, equations etched in ash that smolder long after the fire's gone. The 0 stones do not asterisk anchor asterisk reality asterisk siphon asterisk it, their obsidian surfaces cracked like drying blood. A Psijic once felt the Aurbis shudder, a sound like 1,000 stars choking on their own light. The towers are not prisons for Daedra. They are coffins for the asterisk void asterisk, and every stone they charge unravels a thread. The Order's silence is not fear, it is grief, for the moment they win. They called it transcendence, a liberation beyond flesh, a merging with the code that binds the stars. The Dwemer carved their gods into machinery and vanished into the gaps between realities. But what waits there? What force gnaws at the edges of their hollow triumph? The same that starves the 0 stones. The Psijic Order whispers of balance, of harmony, of threads not to sever, yet their hands tremble when the stones are named. Not because they fear what the Dwemer found, because they know the stones are not anchors, they are bandages, sealing wounds in a fabric that screams to tear itself apart. Others sought the towers, others charged the stones. Their names are dust, their faces blurred from histories. The mantles they bore cracked their skulls. The Aurbis does not forgive intrusions. It devours the hungry. The Nerevarine, the Tribunal, the Thalmir's broken psionic dreams, all reached, all shattered, and still the Psijics hoard their secret. Why? Because the truth is a knife. The 0 stones are not tools. They are the last stitches in a wound that bled the Aurbis raw. Something tore it. Something still gnaws. The Dwemer found it. They followed the fracture. Now their tools hum in forgotten ruins, their language a cipher for what they tried to unmake. The Order fears the stones will fail, not the Daedra, not the return of Red Mountain's fire, the unraveling, the collapse of every plane into the void that birthed it. And so they let the myth stand, let the world believe the stones grant power, let kings and madmen kill for the lie, while the Aurbis screams. The catacombs beneath sisters hum with a cold so ancient it smells of ozone and bone. Here, the 0 stones pulse not as relics, but as wounds. One scholar, fingers trembling, presses a palm to the nearest. It feels like touching a star's eye, searing, hollow, alive. The vault's shadows writhe. For a breath, he sees the Aurbis unraveling a tapestry fraying into smoke, the towers crumbling like sand. The Godhead's dream, he realizes, is not a creation but a tether. Each stone is a knot binding the dream to the mortal frame. The Psijic Order kneels not to power, but to silence. They know the stone's true cost. To hold them is to borrow the hero's role, to become both lucid dreamer and thread in the weave. The scholar pulls back. His ears ring with a sound no mortal should hearth Aurbis screaming. Above, the world turns. Kings carve their greed into mountain and shrine. But in the dark, the Order prays the stones never fail, for if the zero stones wake, they will not grant dominion, they will end the dream. What if the hero's curse is not to save but to anchor, to be the fragile bridge between God and void? The scholar staggers, the hum grows louder. Somewhere a tower shivers. What if every page you turn etches your name into the script of collapse? The zero stones do not just bind Aurbis, they are the scars where reality refuses to tear. To read the scroll is to inscribe your soul into its cipher. The Psijic Order does not fear Daedra, they fear the silence after the last stone fails. What becomes of you when the anchor breaks? A whisper in the void, a line in the unwritten, a mortal-made script. The air in the hollow cradle hums with a static that burns the throat. You can taste it iron and ozone when you stand where the zero stones once pulsed. Now there's only cold, a silence so vast it gnaws at the ears. The Psijic scholars who carved their vows into the bones of the tower never spoke of this. How the absence of a stone leaves a wound in the sky, a tear where stars bleed indigo and fracture into nothing. A tower falls. You have seen it in dreams, the sky cracking like a whip, the ground heaving as if sick with memory. The last witness in Aelinor described it as a dirge. Not the roar of stone on stone, but a sound like a name being swallowed low, wet final. The cold deepens, ash falls upward. And in the silence afterward, the dead do not stay dead. They unravel, thread by thread, until even their shadows forget. You are not a god. You are not even a scholar. You are a hero who wears the armor of 1,000 borrowed legends. What do you do when the map of your soul is drawn in the same ink as the towers, when every step you take echoes through a lattice of fractures? The Psijic Order has buried this truth in the gutters of their equations, in the hollows between numbers too large to name. They know the cost of knowing. They know what waits in the spaces between the zero stones. A scholar in the library of the Ebon Archive once traced the shape of a stone's absence on a sheet of glass. When the glass shattered, he did not scream. He whispered, *, how many lives have we traded for this silence? * His hands were still warm when the wind began to pick at his bones. The zero stones are not monuments, they are sutures, and the Aurbis is a wound that refuses to close. You think of your own heart now and wonder if it too is a stitch in something older, something bleeding. You wonder if your victories are just delays. If every spell you cast, every sword you raise, is merely buying time for a reality that cannot hold, the towers are not yours to save. They are the scaffolding of a house built on a grave. When the last stone breaks, the dream ends, and Yao mortal, fleeting, scripted will be the first to forget. The zero stones are not tools, they are splinters of the first thought, fractures in the Aurbis's skull where reality leaks. The Psijic Order kneels not to power, but to a wound. Each tower is a monument to a silent pact. We will hold this line, let the cracks spread no further. What they cannot say is that the line was never a defense. It is a scaffold, and scaffolds do not build houses, they delay the fall. The Aurbis dreams in fragments. Every plane, every star, every breath of wind is a flicker in its slumber. The zero stones are anchors. Pull one free and the dream stutters. Pull them all and the Aurbis wakes to find itself empty. The Daedra are not chaos, they are echoes. Without the stones, there would be no echoes, only the silence between heartbeats. The Psijic Order knows this. Their rituals are not spells, they are stitches. Each incantation a thread through the veil, each glyph a knot that frays a little faster. They have buried the truth in their own tongues, let their histories rot into half-remembered warnings. * The towers do not fight entropy. They postpone it, *, and when the last scholar murmurs the final syllable, when the last stone cracks beneath a hand too weak to hold it, what remains? Not hell, not heaven. A void that does not care it is a void. You think the Daedra are the enemy, they are the symptoms. The real horror is a universe that forgets it is alive. Imagine a god not mad, not dead but bored. The Aurbis as a child's story left unfinished, the pages torn before the end. The Psijic Order's fear is not of falling, it is of becoming irrelevant. Of their sacrifice meaning nothing, because there will be no one left to remember the shape of the dark. And here is the question that haunts the towers, the one that turns the blood to frost. If the Aurbis forgets how to dream, does it cease to be? Or does it simply stop? The zero stones hum beneath frostbitten stone cold, constant, like a heartbeat. A scholar in the Psijic archives brushes dust from a glyph. Ozone scorches their nose. Their hands tremble. Asterisk, they're not sealing reality. They're mending a wound that never clots. Asterisk, what if shattering these anchors does not free the Aurbis but peels back its skin? The tower's spires